I'm Jim Czek.
And I'm Renee Merrifield.
And we're here with Beyond the Ballot. As usual, lots going on in the world of politics. The big one, though, Mark Carney again goes to Washington, gets lunch at the White House. Just gets a little bit of time with Donald Trump. And there's quite a few, I would say, entertaining clips, but not much in, I guess, substance, I guess. And although I think before we went on live, you said that, yeah, we got some new tariffs. And now this time, 25% tariffs on big trucks, on heavy-duty trucks and that. So it seems like we keep getting worse.
It seems like every time our prime minister goes down south, there's an introduction of new tariffs. Trump made sure that we all knew that he was not in the business of removing any tariffs. He said they're working. He made that loud and clear as Carney was preparing to go down to the U.S. A couple interesting things for me. I don't like the timing of his visit. I think that that's going to be a negative for for Carney. I think that going on October 7th, there's going to be a lot of eclipse of the actual event, unless that's his intention. But as well, President Trump is incredibly distracted. I mean, he's got so many guests and visitors going in. He's got, survivors of the former hostages coming through and being invited to his meeting with Carney. So it's just a very odd timing. Other than if, Trump wants to punish Carney for the stance that he took on declaring Palestine a state. Maybe that's what the intention is here, but otherwise I'm not sure what it is. And it seems very odd to form this meeting. I'd say, sadly, I don't think that we are any closer to having any sort of a deal with the U.S., and we are the last country standing.
Yeah, and one of the things that Ian and I talked about this morning, because we do that show every morning at 9 a.m., is in the room there had to be over 100 journalists, and they got to scream questions out like that. It just doesn't happen in Canada. Like the Liberals and the NDP really screen who gets to come in the room, who gets to ask questions, and then also give you a very limited time to ask questions. And there, we played a clip of Caitlin Collins from CNN, no fan of Trump, and Trump, no fan of hers. And she just basically said this president gives so much access to the press that it's just unprecedented. You know what I mean? Like just crazy. We're going to play some clips here, though. Let's going to play this first clip here with Trump and Carney here when they actually had some. And all of his meetings are wide open, too. It's not like they get to meet in the room, because if this was in Canada, they wouldn't show us the meeting. But Trump just, here you go. See it for what it is.
Let's be clear about the relationship as it stands right now. We are the second largest trading partner of the United States. We do a lot of trade going across the border where we're cooperating, first thing. Secondly, we are the largest foreign investor in the United States. $500 billion in the last 5 years alone, probably $8 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement that we expect to get. Thirdly, there are areas, as the President just said, where conflict, maybe not so much conflict, we compete. There are areas where we compete, and it's in those areas where we have to come to an agreement that works. But there are more areas where we are stronger together, and that's what we're focused on. And we're going to get the right deal. Right deal for America, right deal, obviously, from my perspective, for Canada.
I mean, you hear the reporters? Fact check Carney there. That's not true. Canada is not the largest investor in 5 years, $500 billion. I mean, I can name a bunch of investments in the United States that are way over $500 billion.
Yeah, you might be talking about Brookfield, though. I don't know.
There you go. But just hear the reporters in the room there. We're going to play another clip here. We got a couple clips here to play to kind of just get everything, set the mood for this. Let's go with the next one here.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's an honor to have the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, who I have made very popular. He's an extremely popular Prime Minister, and I'm very honored to do it because I liked him right from the beginning. I've liked him, and we've had a good relationship. We have some natural conflict, but we will probably work that out. But we've had a very strong relationship, and your hosting of the various countries that showed up, that was a beautiful job you did, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If I may, you kindly hosted me and some of my colleagues a few months ago, and I said at the time, you are a transformative president. And since then, the transformation in the economy, unprecedented commitments of NATO partners to defense spending, peace from India, Pakistan through to Azerbaijan, Armenia, disabling Iran as a force of terror, and now, and I'm running out of time, but this is in many respects the most important.
The
what
merger
you created
of Canada
no,
and the
what
United
you
States.
have created.
I'm only-
That wasn't where I was going. I would no, but I, you know, on this
That's good.
solemn.
Trump, no stranger to taking a shot right there, eh?
No, especially if someone's filling up too much airspace. He doesn't like that so much.
Yeah, Trump doesn't buy into the pumping of the tires too much either. He can kind of see through the tire pump, right? So.
Yeah, and that's what Carney's doing. I mean, it's negotiation 101. Yes, you definitely come in and try and you know, make sure that your adversary understands that you can recognize them for what they're good at doing or what they have done. I'm surprised that Carney went so far as to say that the economy in the U.S. is doing so well, because I think it's mixed numbers. I was in a session with the chief economist of RBC over the course of the last couple days, and you know, and one of the things that he showed is how choppy it is and how difficult it is to understand exactly what's going on in the U.S. and how much of it, if the inflation is attributable to the tariffs so far, or how much of it is just natural inflation because of the monetary stimulus package. But both of those would be Trump packages. So it's difficult to know how much he's responsible for, but certainly there are some positive signs in the U.S. economy, but there's also some danger signs in the U.S. economy. I mean, Carney, again, he's not any closer to a deal. The one great thing and the silver lining is that Trump actually said that there might be a deal. That still gives me hope, because if he was still saying there's not going to be a deal at all, you know, there wouldn't be hope. In terms of amalgamation, Trump's going to stay on that point.
Yeah, I think they brought up supply management, and Trump said that was a problem. So that's going to be part of CUSMA, the new CUSMA. That was a thing there. And he also says, you know, like we compete. And he says, yeah, Canada wants to build cars, and we want to build cars. And he said that's going to be a thing. So I don't see them conceding much. And he did say there's likely going to be tariffs in any new deal. I don't think Canada can rely on. We have to find a way that we can provide value, and that's the way it is for everything. We shouldn't just expect to be like, you know, like charity. Like, we shouldn't expect charity from the Americans. We should expect to say, this is the value we bring. This is why you want, you know, the stuff we have to offer.
Yeah, and right now we've got, you know, we have basically 95% of all of our goods are subject to the CUSMA agreement. That comes to an end at the end of this year and becomes subjected to negotiation next year. We are in really, really dangerous times here, because right now, I mean, we only have about a 5% exposure to the tariffs and to what's happening. Yes. Is it difficult on some of those industries? 100%. The steel industry is taking on the chin. You know, the auto manufacturing industry is taking on the chin. There are some really big headwinds that, you know, President Trump has introduced. What Carney has not done is negotiate any of that away. And we're about to negotiate a much larger aspect of our economy and of what affects our cost of living, which is that CUSMA agreement. So we're not talking just about supply management, getting rid of supply management. And this comes from a dairy farmer. You know, my family were dairy farmers for years and years and years. And the first thing they would say is that supply management artificially increases the price for Canadians, because it actually harms us and subjects us to a lack of competition. Having said that, our quality of product is much higher here in Canada than it is in the US. So we'd have to suffer with a lower quality. We can make that choice if we wanted to. It would become a premium brand, let's say, but dear God, get rid of it and get that off the table.
So I watched most of the stuff, and we'll play all the clips again, and we did play them in the morning show. I watched most of the clips. So if you were scoring it, there wasn't anything that we got other than, you know, there were some platitudes. Trump, you know, stroked Mark Carney as well, saying, you know, he's a great leader and all these things. And, you know, they both did that, you know, like kind of mutual stuff there. But nothing of substance for Canada. Nothing, you know, like, I mean, score nothing. We've conceded on so many things, digital services tax. I can't, like, there's so many things we conceded on with nothing coming back, like no progress. Yeah, no progress on anything. We've actually just got more tariffs, like more tariffs and more tariffs and more tariffs. And here's CBC covering, though, instead of CBC being what they should be doing, here's a little clip from CBC on how it went there.
Donald Trump was saying some of the more outrageous things related to domestic politics in the United States. Mark Carney would raise an eyebrow and sort of like it was funny to see the I don't know if it's a lack of poker face, but during some of his answers, Carney was winking toward the reporters, not at any specific reporters, but sort of in the room as Donald Trump was saying some of the things. And I know that got picked up on social media real hard last time when Donald Trump was.
That's good. Like, what kind of reporter would say that? Like, she attacks Trump right away, which is typical for CBC, right? She attacks Trump right away in his house, and then goes on to say Carney's winking. Like, why would Carney, they're actually making it worse for any negotiation that might happen.
Yeah, whoever handles Carney should tell him to stop winking. That is a terrible trait. And it actually is very subversive. So I would say it undermines, it's too easily misinterpreted, and he needs to stop it. That's an easy stop. I would say that, in this particular situation, Trump has, the way he talks about his relationship with Carney really makes me give pause. Because if they were truly that agreeable, then they would have an agreement. Yeah. But we don't have an agreement, which means, does that mean that we're just a pushover and that's why Trump likes us? Because the only ones that he really doesn't, fancy are ones that stand up to him and ones that kind of take exception with. But those are also the ones that have agreement with him. Take the Indian president or prime minister, for instance. Modi. Again, Modi went head to head with Trump. Trump was not happy. He made his unhappiness known all over social media. But Modi is the one that has an agreement with Trump. I mean, we could go leader by leader, but the reality is, Carney doesn't. If Carney has such a great relationship, why do we not have an agreement?
So the biggest thing with Modi in that is that he says what it is. Mark Carney will say, he'll basically on bended knee while he's there, and then when he gets out of the room, then he's all like fire and brimstone, like him and Doug Ford and Anita Anand and all that. And then when he comes back in the room, he's all like, why don't you say what it is? You could tell that he was squirming there. You want to say something, then just say it, right? Get the deal, right? Stop playing both sides, because it really looks bad. It actually looks bad. Makes us look so weak when you go in there and you're just on bended knee, but then you come out of the room and you talk and that winking stuff and all that other stuff just makes it look so silly. And Ian brought up a great point this morning, saying Trump's used to being attacked after, right? Everybody attacks him. So it's just like water off a duck's back to him, right? Just like, oh, whatever, right? Say whatever you want, right? It doesn't really matter. No, he doesn't really care at all. Again, why? I don't understand the purpose of Carney bringing Melanie Joly and Anita Anand. I don't understand why their presence there was required. Maybe that was, maybe that was set up ahead of time, or maybe that's the start. Maybe they have other meetings that are going on while they're there. It seems odd. It fills the room really unnecessarily. And if Trump knows that, Carney's bringing people, well, he's going to bring people. He's never going to be out peopled, So from that perspective, I think it also dilutes the power of their conversation with everyone kind of sitting there around the table. Especially Anita Anand, when she stood up there at the UN to an empty room and basically went at Trump and talked about, the United States is isolationist and they're all about multilateralism. And, that whole speech was geared to anti-Trump. And, sitting across from, I guess maybe just to fill out the couch there, because on the other side of the couch there, you got Rubio, and I think it's Hegseth sitting there. And if you compare Rubio to Anita Anand, I don't know, who'd you take on your team?
Yeah. There's no comparison, none at all. And the only other thing I could feel is that, in the conversation, Trump is just so not threatened by Carney. There's not an ounce of him that feels like there's any sort of power imbalance whatsoever. And I think that's because Carney hasn't really got a vision for the economy yet. If he thought that for 1 second we were a powerhouse, or we were going to threaten his oil and gas sector, or we were going to threaten any of his natural resources, I think that there miuld be more to talk about. But right now, he doesn't.
So the one thing I really do like about what Trump does is it's all in the open. Because, if this was behind closed doors, CBC would be selling us some kind of narrative and saying, oh, this happened, this happened, this happened. I like it that it's there for us to see. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you want to come for lunch, great, show up, but everybody gets to watch what goes on. Like, there's no closed door stuff. It's just like, this is what it is. I do want to move. Yeah, go ahead.
And don't get me wrong, there are lots of closed door things that are happening. Lots of closed door things that are happening. But Trump has given more access to himself and to his meetings and to the other leaders than any other president in history. And so I can commend him on that. I hope it is something that will continue for other leaders. But the level of accountability and scrutiny that he has opened himself to is unprecedented and unparalleled in the world.
Yeah, if we could only get that from Eby and Mark Carney. Do you know what I mean? Like, if we could only get that, right? Even Danielle Smith puts herself out there, goes to all these town halls and lets people scream at her and do it. She's got courage, right? She does that, right? And I do want to switch gears here, and I want to talk about something where here's the results of what we're doing. Here's a great Canadian company, Trilogy Metals, that just got a deal with the Department of War, invested, they bought 10% of the company. And the stock is up nearly 300% this morning. The stock is up almost at $10. I don't know what it is actually right at this moment, but so they have a project in Alaska. Most Canadian miners have left Canada because it's hard to get anything going. So they've got a project in Alaska that Biden had squashed. And here's Trump reviving this project, fast tracking. They're going to build a road, a 200-mile road, a gravel road, so they can get access because it's a remote mine. Because, you know, metals don't just show up next to a town, they show up where they are. So you actually, that's how towns get built around them. Hence, British Columbia has all these northern towns in that because they're either started because of forestry or mining. And so this is a huge deal for a Canadian company. These are ex-Ivanhoe guys, ex-Placer Dome guys, all Canadian companies, right? And we can't fast track anything. Like, and it's just crazy that they again, an American company, or Americans have invested in a Canadian company, and you know, we're seeing the results of that, but it doesn't really, it's not wealth for Canada really, other than the Canadian guys are going to bring some of that here, I guess. But the wealth that's being created by actually investing into resources is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, it's over $10 right now. So it's up $7.20 at $10. And the thing started, you know, it opened at, I think it was $2 yesterday or something like that, right? Crazy.
And that's what the U.S. does. You know, the U.S. And mostly the states, actually, but there is some federal money that's also being granted and being, you know, put into these different projects. But they go in with not just the approvals, but with the infrastructure. And that is a huge differentiator. I mean, it's one of the things that great countries have done all around the world is where they, you know, even if you look at China, you know, where they need labor, where they need infrastructure, they put it in, and they put it in first. Now, that's a communist country, and I don't want to emulate them in any way, shape, or form. But having said that, it is a way to get things done and get things done efficiently. You look at different states in the U.S., whether it's Arkansas and how they've actually attracted all of the different lumber companies and forestry companies. They've done so with tax incentives, with land, with, you know, guaranteed cut blocks, and then their infrastructure, you know, the necessary resources for them to run their businesses. And what's happened? Billions and billions and billions of Canadian dollars have gone there to rest and to invest. You know, you look at the AI is the same way. You know, the U.S. and states are literally having competitions to see who can produce the most power for these AI companies. Because once that AI is in place, it's not going to move. And people, I mean, sound the alarm bell in Canada. We are so far behind on the AI train that I don't think we can ever catch up. And if we don't catch up, it means that all of our data and all of our information and all of our use of AI is going to be run by the U.S., who can turn it on and off for Canada at a whim.
You don't feel assured that Evan Solomon, the former CBC journalist, is traveling across the country asking you how we should progress on AI? He's a Mark Carney's art dealer as well. Like, you don't feel confident in his experience? The big deal about Trilogy Metal, and I think people really have to recognize the big deal in this is, like you just said, they build the infrastructure. And I think you told us in a show earlier, who built the road to Alaska? Who paid for that road?
The sad part, those are our tax dollars hard at work. Yeah, but the U.S. actually built that road. They came in, and it's why we can't shut it down. It's why we can't. I mean, there's all that talk about like we're gonna take your access away, and it's like no, you're not, because we actually signed a treaty agreement that said that the U.S. could come and invest those dollars, but in exchange, we would never ever take away their access. So it was just impossible. It was mere grandstanding by our lovely Premier Eby.
They got a rich deposit there in the northwest Alaska there, a rich deposit, and this company was stalled by the Biden administration. Here Trump comes in and says, we can get this thing going. We're actually going to invest. We're going to buy some stock, fill your coffers, and we're going to build you a road because we need that mine now. And the Department of War is investing in it because it wants the minerals. It wants access to the critical minerals. Again, we have vast riches and resources all over Canada, and we just self-harm. That's the title of our thing. And we just can't seem to get out of our way. And here in contrast, here's Tim Hodgson, our energy minister. He puts out this tweet: abundant natural resources, competitive tax incentives, and regulatory regime that inspires certainty. Canada has it all. And he touts this company, Carbon Capture it's called. Carbon capture moving to Canada, so it's moving to Alberta. But if you dig under the hood, I did a really good post on LinkedIn. You can go read it, and it compares everything. So this monstrosity that you're looking at there is a carbon capture scheme where they suck air through these filters. You suck air through these filters, and then you sequester this carbon in these filters. And then you put it in a truck, and then you truck the carbon to a location where you've drilled a deep well. And then you're going to inject the carbon into the ground, into these deep saline wells. And then you get 75% tax credit from the Canadian government because Trump killed all the credits. The $76 billion in green scheme credits have been killed. So they're going to come to Canada because they can't do this anywhere else. So they come to Canada for the 75% tax credit, and also the ability to tax our oil production companies because they're going to sell them carbon credits after they go over their emissions cap. Isn't that amazing?
No, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And this is the necessity and the very existence of a company of this nature exists solely because of our environmental pressures that we put onto our oil and gas sector or any of our industries. This is a product of our self-making. It's unnecessary. It does not move the global emissions cause forward, and it's performative and nothing less. And it's going to cost taxpayers dollars, which is ridiculous. It's going to tax us in the lack of prosperity from our oil and gas sectors and the lack of future investment from our oil and gas sectors. And it's also going to literally tax us by giving a company of this nature dollars. The fact that they need dollars to exist means that, they really are, not able or not capable of it.
You can go read it on their website. They said this technology isn't viable anywhere else in the world because they won't fund it anymore. So only Canada is the place for it. So you're going to get a lot more of these coming to Canada because all that money is dried up in the United States. So they're going to get 75 cents on the dollar, 75% tax credit. So they're going to take from the taxpayer, and then they're going to tax our prosperity as well. And that money could be going to Canadians. They're going to take some tax off it, selling a carbon credit. And guess what does a better job than this monstrosity right here? It's called a tree. A tree. But if you go on their website, so they've kind of jumped ahead and said, oh, why don't we just plant trees? And it says, well, we can't trust trees anymore because, the wildfires, trees are no longer reliable. Trees do it for, I think, you can go read it. This monstrosity, I think it's a few acres of trees could do this whole job. And it's not just trees that do it. Grass does it. Anything that has photosynthesis does it. And it does, you don't have to bury the carbon either, because how are they sure the carbon stays in the ground as well? Because if fissures in the an earthquake, anything can. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But you know who else sells carbon credits? Big guess. Hey, good guess. There you go. Carbon capture. That's what we're going to do. We're going to sell these carbon credits. Welcome to Canada, and so you can take taxpayer dollars and then also tax our oil production so that Canadians just siphon off money off of the oil production. And this is what I think why they kept the emissions cap and why they keep using this clean energy superpower. Because they're going to let them pump some oil probably, but they're going to say, you got to buy these carbon credits.
Yeah, and again, it's a waste of dollars from our oil and gas sector, a waste of dollars from our taxpayers. It's just a waste. And right now, we don't have it to waste with our federal government in deficit. The vast majority of our provincial governments in deficit. We absolutely need an economic plan forward, and this is not part of it.
You remember when the Trudeau, they were, everything was about climate change and that, and they were going to plant these 2 billion trees. And if they're really serious about that'd be the easiest thing to do, plant trees, right? That'd be the easiest thing to do. So in actuality, I think they said they only had about by 8.5 million trees planted of the 2 billion. I mean, they weren't serious about it, right? It was all performative. And here's a clip to show you some of our self-harm. These are good clips, actually, talking about energy here. And this is in a committee meeting here. Let's play this clip here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I see it on a regular basis. And I think the government's last 10 years of saying that the energy industry is bad and we need to transition away from those jobs has made a lot of teenagers and youth choose other careers because they've been told by government that this is a bad industry and something that it won't be here for their lifetime. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about how some of the emissions cap policies, the policies surrounding overall anti-energy rules and regulations like the emissions cap and the shipping ban, how they are impacting investment and therefore new jobs in these sectors?
Well, great question. And you mentioned, Fort McMurray, and we all remember the heydays, especially if you're from out west, of the hiring and the jobs that came in that boom time of between 2006 and 2014. And you could get a great job and you could support a family. You could have a great life. My uncle lives in Fort McMurray. And that has obviously declined. Part of it is just global commodity markets. We won't be naive and blame it all at the feet of certain policies, but certainly it means that Canada has to be more competitive right now in attracting that investment. Right now, global commodities are globally traded, and that means the capital will just go to whatever jurisdiction is going to get the best return on investment. In Canada, where we're, for example, the only oil exporting country that has put on an emissions cap or has threatened to put on an emissions cap, that obviously is a signal to investors, don't put your money here. And we see it in mining and forestry and certain other sectors, similar conditions, where this is just going to be a very highly expensive jurisdiction, an uncompetitive jurisdiction for return on investment, and the money goes elsewhere. Our resources are very valuable, but we have to allow capital to grow when it comes to Canada, and most of our policies and regulations have not allowed for that.
Yeah.
Brilliantly said.
So yeah,
it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. And putting up this big carbon capture plant is not going to do anything to deal with what she just said. We are not competitive. And it's going to keeping the emissions cap, keeping the industrial carbon tax, and and signaling to investment that we're not open for business is not going to change. And thus, I loved what Layla Goodwich said at the beginning there. It affects prosperity, and I love how she actually tied it to the jobs that used to provide for families, and the jobs that people and students used to prepare for, and now they're preparing to be activists rather than actually part of our workforce, because that's the only thing that really makes money.
Yeah, I was a mine site controller, and I'll tell you right now, even the janitor at the site there was making like $80,000 a year, and most of the guys were making 100 plus. And those are the jobs that buy houses and buy trucks and build families. And that's, they were good jobs, like geologists, engineers, and they train anybody that wants to work, right? You know what I mean? If you want to work in the mining industry, that's Heather Exner-Perot. She's a senior fellow and director at Energy and Natural Resources and Environment at the McDonald Laurier Institute. Really good stuff you and I have been saying. But that carbon capture thing, guess what they did? That company was the 2023 WEF award winner in 2023. Mark Carney said something about a week ago that we played the clip, and it was really confusing. And it was about a 3-minute kind of like, when he kind of goes and you don't even know what he's saying. But he basically said, we're going to take the money from soft hands and move it into long-term hands, which is basically this net zero alliance has fallen apart in the world. Like this banking, he was the head of the chair of this net zero alliance where all the banks were part of it. And all the banks now, they basically, I think they shut it down as of yesterday. And they want their money back. That's that soft hands to long-term hands. They want their money back because they invested a lot of this because it was being forced on them, this ESG and everything. A lot of the companies had to do it. And so they put big money in. I mean, you remember back just, a few years ago, BlackRock, Vanguards, JP Morgan, everybody was into this ESG and they were pumping everything into it. And now they're saying, where's our money, right? You told us this was going to last forever and it isn't. It's over. So where's our money? So these companies that are still alive, this carbon capture one is coming to Canada to bleed the taxpayer. And it's a WEF winner. And are the Canadians, like Tim Hodgson touts it, right, as a big win? Meanwhile, Trilogy, there's a real wealth creating company, a Canadian company, that's getting help from the Americans, and it's actually going to create wealth. And here we have this one that's just going to basically bleed the taxpayer. That's our trade.
Yeah, and that trade is nonsensical. It is been shown to not work, and that is why the banks backed away from it. It did not work. It did not add value to their shareholders, and thus it cannot function as it was proposed to.
We got one more clip from her, and this is really telling. You can listen on this clip here.
If I may add, before any other witness adds comments, this is exactly why we, before Rose for the summer break, we're doing the One Canadian Economy bill. It's to ensure that we are delivering the projects that are required for good-paying jobs here in Canada. So, I think from what I hear from your response, I am hearing that you think that the government, this current government, is doing all the right things and looking in the right direction to make sure that we do create those good-paying jobs here in Canada for Canadians and our economy.
So good question. So the oil and gas CEOs have written 3 different letters. I think they're up to about 96 oil and gas CEOs signing on to a letter asking for 5 specific policy changes. None of those policy changes have yet been made. So while I think everyone, in Western Canada agrees that the tone is much better and prioritizing major projects is very positive, nothing has happened to unleash the capital that people have out here that would make them actually be able to go to their boards and make final investment decisions and say, I have certainty that I will get a better return on investment. And so I hope that they also look at what industry is specifically asking for. And I don't think we'll see the investment come in until they do.
Brilliantly said. I'm in love with her. She's awesome. I haven't seen these clips before, but honestly, that was like an absolute punch down of that MP there. It was an attempt at getting a very softball sort of laud of their bill, and she just basically threw it down and said that's actually not what they're asking for, and it didn't do anything, which is true. If it was this revolutionary bill that was supposed to unlock all of these projects, then it should have already done that, and it hasn't. And the 6 projects that they've put into this program are basically all ones that are already underway anyway, so it hasn't done anything to actually move the dial.
Yeah, if I was in court, I would say, leading the witness, you're asking for her to give you the answer that pumps your tires. But she's just like, well, actually, it's all performative. And that's what it's been. I mean, I've been watching. We've been on this every day. It's all performative. Like, they say they're going to do this, yet all the restrictions are still the chokehold that Canada continues down the road of self-harm. All the choke points are still there. All the choke points are still there.
And, I've said it so many times before, but, don't listen to what politicians say. Don't listen to their speeches. absolutely watch what they do and what changes are made and how it affects your life. That is the only way to actually judge a politician. You know, my grandfather had this great saying, because you know, when you go to a rodeo or whatever, you know, he'd always go, "Oh, that was all hat, no cowboy." And it's like, yeah, like, you know, what is actually being done or said, or who is actually doing the work? And it's not, the work is not being done, which is why our economy sits abysmal right now and not moving forward, and, you know, posting negative GDP while we're still seeing population growth. So I think we're in really big trouble here, and that is what some of these institutions are trying to bring to the attention of the MPs.
And I think, you know, Danielle Smith put this out too, and she said Canada has a once-in-a-generation opportunity to become an energy superpower. We don't need energy more than we ever have. You know what I mean? Like AI. We need energy more than ever. Like, it is such a big thing. And, you know, she goes on, and she's got an op-ed in the Financial Post there, and you should go and read it. It's just once in a lifetime opportunity. But she does say in the next tweet that she puts out, there's no universe where Alberta will tolerate being landlocked in our own country by our neighboring province, especially when the same industry he continues to demonize has generated so much wealth for his province and his country. Basically calling into question, either we have a nation where we can transport our goods to ports that belong to Canada, or we don't. We have a bunch of provinces, right? Because if EB can block it, and I do want to play this clip with EB first, because I mean, you know EB very well. Let's play this clip on. You can just watch his emotions as he talks here, and you can kind of see where he fits into this picture.
British Columbia is an unmatched land of possibility, but our province and our country face unprecedented threats. Now, more than ever, British Columbians are coming together with major opportunities that will deliver prosperity for all of Canada. British Columbians are lighting the path ahead, and we're going to deliver a brighter future for our province and our country. Here in this province, we have literally tens of billions of dollars worth of major projects that are ready to go. They are economically sound, private sector and First Nation led, and will create many thousands of good-paying union jobs for families. Through these projects, we will drive the Canadian economy at a time when it's under direct threat and attack by Donald Trump and those who seek to bring his harmful political project here to Canada. The fictional Alberta Bitumen Pipeline project achieves literally none of these things, doesn't have First Nations consent, makes no financial or economic sense. It has no private proponent, no route, no private funding, and would cost taxpayers billions. The non-existent Alberta Pipeline project would put tens of billions of dollars in real BC projects and jobs at risk. On top of that, it threatens one of the world's most precious and intact ecosystems, our beautiful BC coast and Great Bear Rainforest. This region is one of our country's greatest assets and supports thousands of jobs in coastal industries. Salmon alone supports local jobs, communities, and cultures. It's central to both the economy and way of life on the North Coast. The Alberta Fantasy Bitumen Pipeline means putting all of that, the major projects, the economy, the jobs, and our coastline at risk. What the Conservatives in Alberta are pushing is an entirely political creation in the lead up to their election for wedge politics at the expense of British Columbia and Canada's economy. And they're being supported by the BC Conservatives.
He is wrong. Like, he is wrong. This is fear mongering, and it is performative, and it is disgusting. So, I mean, what he's trying to do is compare Trump to Danielle Smith. What he's trying to do is say that if this pipeline were to go through, it would threaten all of the other positive things. That is simply false. But what he is going to use her for, and like, this is a great warning, is that he's using her for cover for when his government denies these access, to projects, or when his government, does something that is not necessarily in the interests of British Columbians. He's used Trump in the same way. our economy in BC was absolutely failing before Trump's tariffs ever came in. And, most economists will say that the tariffs in BC have maybe had a 5% effect, which means that, the 95% of our economy failing was already in process. So this video here, I think, signifies just what he thinks of the British Columbian public, which is that we are not smart enough to know that, and 80% of us are on the wrong side, which is 80% of British Columbians and 80% of Canadians want pipelines.
I give him an A on performance, because you could just see how he started out like kind of serious, and then he got kind of angry, and then he got like super happy when he talked about the coast. I mean, it was very performative, and it is. He doesn't even have Jason Kenney was on CBC the other day, and he doesn't even have the right to stop a pipeline. Either we are Canada or we're not. Like, this could actually bring the question of Canada to a head. And he's doing it in a number of different ways. I'm going to interview Jeff Moyse tomorrow. He's going to bring the question of Canada to a head in a number of different ways. And the way that they said that they couldn't argue extinguishment on fee simple lands, and this here, blocking pipeline, blocking prosperity for Canadians that can't. People right now, beef is a luxury. Like, you go to Costco and you look at the price of beef. Beef is a luxury in Canada. This is one of the richest resource nations in the world. And we have a Canadian company, I just told you about Trilogy, like it's just tapping unknown wealth. And we got somebody coming here to bleed the taxpayer. And David Eby saying that just because we have a pipeline that goes to the coast already, TMX. Did it kill the salmon? Did you mean? And this pipeline ban that they talk about, Christy Clark said, U.S. oil tankers go down the coastline every day. And I mean, it only bans Canadian tankers.
Yeah, it only bans Canadian prosperity. And I was going to bring that to your attention, was how Christy Clark threw it down and basically said it's a ridiculous bill that does not do anything that other than to affect Canadians' prosperity. The U.S. sends tankers down, and ships down every single day, over and over and over and over and over again. And her point at the end was very poignant, was that, how many spills have there been? Right? So, like, you know what? This is ridiculous, and it is fear mongering, and it's threatening. Basically, he's saying, like, if this pipeline goes through, I'm gonna threaten the prosperity of all the other projects that are slated to go. Which I would challenge him. Please get all those tens of billions of dollars of projects moving forward. Like, please, anytime now.
I've worked in the mining industry. Show me fast track a mine. Let's see it, because I know there's lots available. They left. I mean, a lot of the best miners, the best people, have left to go somewhere else.
They've gone to Alaska.
Yeah, they've gone to Alaska. They've gone to Mexico. They've gone to the United States. So I interviewed a guy a few days ago, another miner, and he says that their number one priority. They got several projects. Most of them that they're moving forward are in Nevada. But they have Canadian properties, but they're just like, well, if we have to choose, we're going to go where, there's actually somebody wants us, right? They're going to go where capital is treated well.
Yeah, it's like what McDonald Laurier's consultant or, employee said there. Capital goes where they can be assured of their return. And right now, Canada does not offer any assurance.
Well, here's something David Eby said that you didn't think he was probably going to say. He said it he was being interviewed there on decriminalization. He said the words, "I was wrong." I think he's wrong on a lot of things. I was wrong. And he's now admitted that he's wrong on decriminalization, yet the project's going to, the pilot's going to run until January anyway. Well, why don't you stop it? How many people have lost their lives? How many people have lost family members? And then they're going to still do it, even though he now admits he was wrong.
Yeah, I wish that he would allow that contriteness to affect the decriminalization experiment and just end it, like you said. But I think that there's so much more that needs to be done on this file. There was hope when Josie Osborne took it over and it was put under health. It's been absolutely obliterated. David Eby made a big mistake on Clean BC and doubling down on Clean BC. He made a big mistake on decriminalization. These are his babies. These are his brainchilds to a large extent. And I think that we need to be, his activism has not taken us down to positive places. They've obliterated the very fabric of our society, the way that we do business, how the businesses are succeeding or failing, and we need to take notice of this and hold him accountable for it. And I hope that we as Canadians, as British Columbians, will do so. This takes a big, bold move. I mean, he was at a UDI luncheon at the time. Rick Illick was not kind to him. He was pretty hostile in terms of some of the things he said. He said the quiet parts out loud, and Eby was very contrite and saying, like, I was wrong and I shouldn't have taken us down this path. It's one thing to say you're wrong. It's another thing to make, retribution and to actually do things right. And what I haven't seen is any other path forward. I mean, he has come around full circle on the involuntary care, but even that, he's announced a very vague, like, we're going to build these beds and nobody knows how many and nobody knows where and nobody knows when and how and what it's going to look like. And so again, it just feels like a nothing sandwich.
Yeah, we're going to go back to that other tweet with Eleanor Sturko, though, and she talks about David Eby saying it was wrong. But, there is drug labs operating here, and we saw that with New Zealand making their biggest drug bust ever there at the border there, and it came from Vancouver, meth filled in maple syrup bottles. You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy. And then we got John Rustad here. David Eby's a good actor. Like, I gave him an A, but John Rustad, he's offering, calling the premier nothing but ideology and unicorn farts. I think, instead of just, coming up with cute little lines, I mean, they need to find a politician that can actually speak from the heart and say, like, we need to fix this. We need to fix this. It can't be ideology first. It has to be tabletop issues first, because Canadians are in a tough spot. Like, a lot of Canadians now can't pay their mortgages, can't pay their rent. This is Canada, and we're in a spot where you got record food bank lineups. Beef is a luxury.
Yeah, we're in trouble. We're in trouble, and I can guarantee you that there's a lot of conversations around kitchen tables and around dinner tables nowadays that are really serious in nature. Are we going to be able to make ends meet? Do we need a new job? Is there somewhere else that we can go where our kids have a future? I mean, there's a lot of conversations happening, and this is not one of them. John is in trouble. And, if I was advising John, I would say prepare an eloquent exit, because you have not led us well. The polling numbers came out this week, and they were absolutely abysmal. He is not leading Eby in a single category on a single issue in terms of who the British Columbian public think can lead forward. That is catastrophic, and his polling numbers are so much lower than the actual party that if I was a party insider, I would be telling him, like, it's time for you to go. Like, don't take down the ship with us. So this is like a captain who is on a train of self-destruct and literally is going to take the entire ship with them. It's creating a huge amount of collateral damage on the party, on the great MLAs that are a part of it, and I think that there's big housekeeping that has to be done in order for British Columbians to say, yeah, they are a party that can lead us forward. Eby must be having a heyday with this, because even with all the negativity that surrounds some of the decisions that his government has made, man, oh man, oh man, there is not a viable option on the other side. We've got a green activist, you've got, Rustad, who's, parties in chaos, and you've got two other, parties where there's so one topic or one issue, and then some independents thrown in there. Like, I mean, just a fiasco, an absolute fiasco. And right now, I mean, it's really difficult to see any of the parties that have a vision forward. And we need one.
If I was doing a meme, I would probably put David Eby. I think I talked about smoking a cigar with his feet up on the desk in Mad Magazine. They're just like, what, me worry? I mean, because basically you can get away with anything right now. And because if there was a strong leader with a strong message, because even right now, I think the pushback on this right stuff, I think it has to be just like, that's enough. Like, I mean, it's just ridiculous, right? And so they're letting him get away with it, though, right? Because he has some reporters actually working hard. You know, you got guys like Rob Shaw and Sam Cooper and that are doing really good work. And it just, he's not meeting the moment, I would say. He's not meeting the moment. And I think that's the trouble. And I think the biggest moment he missed was on Kevin Falcon, handed him the ball at the 1 yard line, and he said, "I don't need your ball." And he basically lost the election because of that. And it's just gotten worse because he kind of put together, I think, instead of taking the best of those two parties and making, you know what I mean? Like, and then part as party leader, well, you know, that as a leader, you need to kind of coalesce your people, right? You need to bring them together. Nobody's going to agree on everything, but you need to find a common ground. And John Russ said one of the things he said it to me, is that he's going to let his people speak, and they can speak they have a responsibility to their constituents first, and that's not true. He's fired a few people already, Eleanor Sturko. And that's probably really hurt him, because Eleanor Sturko would be, I would say, in the running for his job.
Yeah, Eleanor Sturko was certainly a bright light in amidst the MLAs that he has. She was making, well, she got EB to say he was wrong, right? I mean, you think about that, right? That is the work of her over the course of the last 4 years, literally banging that drum over and over and over again as she got into the House on the decriminalization policies that she saw such horrible results from. And like, honestly, John he talks out of both sides of his mouth. On the one hand, he says, yeah, free speech and no whipped decisions. And on the other, he's literally got a chaos and firing them left, right, and center for saying things. Like, we need a serious discipline. We need this. And honestly, I think he should introduce a new discipline to his entire team. You can't have a party that has everyone speaking in all different directions. That's not actually a party. That's a group of individual, one issue candidates. And that doesn't work. And it doesn't work because the public don't know what you stand for or what your voice is all about. If I was him, I would be sitting every single caucus member down and saying, today is a new day, and this is how we move forward. We're not going to talk about all these pet issues anymore. What we're going to talk about is what matters to British Columbians. We're going to talk about the economy. We're going to talk about housing. We're going to talk about the cost of living. We're going to talk about healthcare, and we're going to get back to the issues that matter most. And that's how I would be, rattling the chains and basically saying, you want to talk about those other things? You know what? Write a journal. Keep your own private journal. But that's not why you were elected. You were elected under one banner, and because you were, under that banner, and we fly together, right? I mean, it's like two parents squabbling all the time. Like, it's just ridiculous, and like the kids don't know which way's up.
Yeah, the reality is British Columbia is kind of like mostly centrist, I would think, or leaning left, a little bit left or right. But I mean, I think right now, John let them make him extreme when I don't know if he is or not, but I mean, he's allowed the EB to paint him that way, and the media hasn't helped him much either. But to be a successful politician, one has to be a great communicator. And if you look at Danielle Smith, great communicator, very great communicator. And you look at Trump too. He's a really good communicator. He's an excellent communicator. He's raw and says what he wants, right? He's very raw. And
Doug Ford would be another one. So he calls it like he's rough around the edges. John Horgan was the same.
Yeah, John Horgan. Yeah, for sure, John Horgan. Yeah.
The public gave him like chance after chance after chance, like swearing, saying rude things while everyone dies. Like he'd shrug his shoulders. Like, honestly, like, he did not always say the smartest things, but you know what? He was authentic in who he was and what he was about. That's why EB scares you. Like, that's why you say he's a great actor. You know what? Danielle Smith wasn't acting in the 10-minute YouTube short that I saw her in. She's authentic. She says what she means. Those town halls, you can only do those if you're authentic. You can only do those if you're convinced of what you're saying. And right now, I mean, yeah, we just don't have great leadership right now in BC.
Well, things change, but like you said, Canada continues down this road of self-harm. And the last thing we'll talk about, and we'll try to do quick, the budget. They're going to push it out here November 4th. And Francois Philippe Champagne is trying to sell it as this, you know, the new way of the new age budget and where they're going to split it in two. And I think you and I talked about in the past, they knew they were going to do it. They were going to kind of separate it and play this kind of like this shell game here with it. And again, the PBO's office came out shocking, stupefying, alarming, unsustainable, and right on cue, the CBC came out with a hit job. And if you can't change the message, you go after the messenger, and that's what they've done. There's 2 former PBOs coming out now with CBC telling you that he's got to walk it back, and you know, like basically they're attacking the messenger now. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. And I mean, case in point, I do think we need to pay attention to this budget. I really hope that those that are smarter than I, like you, with their CPAs can actually go through it and make sense of it and do a comparative analysis with what we have been looking at in the past. I know that the Conservatives are onto this, and hopefully they will have already lined up individuals who can do that work, because we as Canadians deserve the truth and deserve transparency. And this is going to be a budget. This is going to be something that, you know, we've put into capital budgets, operational aspects, and you know, we're looking at things that don't make sense and things that we can't compare to where we've been in the past. So I think it's a very dangerous budget and one we need to pay attention to.
And one of the telling moments in this, and I've talked about it quite a few times, even if they tried this in the UK or the United States, the media would attack it and say, that's not right, you got to do it this way, and they would put it together themselves and attack it. Let's just see how the government-funded media helps here, because right now they're showing that they're trying to help sell it for the Liberals, which is odd, right? They should be trying to hold power to account. But again, great show. Anything you want to add?
No, thank you so much, and thank you for listening, and thank you for being educated on these matters. It matters a lot.
Yeah, Canada continues down that road of self-harm, and Heather there pointed it out very, very clearly, to the, will they listen to that? That's the question, right? That's the question. Will they listen? Yeah. Okay, thank you for watching Now Media.